Thank you. I'd just like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land and where we meet and pay my respects to the elders of the Gadigal people, pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to the traditional owners of where anyone's watching or listening to the conference today. So thank you for that. Clicker. There we go. Okay, so my presentation's called But We Are Not Amsterdam, or as it's usually relayed to me, come on mate, for God's sake, we're not bloody Amsterdam. Sorry, I know that was a very David Brant start to a presentation. I promise I will get more professional as I go forwards. So we've all seen this face. This is pretty much the face when any planner goes into the engineering team and tells them that somebody like me is going to come in and start talking to them about cycling infrastructure. So about 10 minutes into the meeting, I'm telling them about these amazing economical benefits of taking away a bit of parking outside some shops and putting in some bike lanes. We go for about another 15 minutes, and then I bring it up. I say the words that make them all cringe: Dutch cycling infrastructure. Now, this isn't me just in the Netherlands. I love it, and if I can go my whole career trying to achieve half of what they've done, then I've been a very successful engineer. But there is a problem with the framing, and it does become a little bit defensive sometimes. So I dream about this stuff. I go to bed dreaming about Dutch roundabouts, Dutch entrance curbs, and Vierstraats. But we've seen the safe active streets. There's Napier Street in Melbourne. We can't just go and stick a Vierstraat in and put a sign up and say, there you go, this is a bicycle boulevard. It takes more than that, like Warren was mentioned earlier. Even the Dutch guidance would say you need more people cycling than you do cars to do this. It says don't do it unless that's a situation. So it's a pretty hard sell. And I don't know anywhere in Australia where there's more bikes than there are cars, except for maybe a big four on a Saturday afternoon around there in the playground where kids just take it over completely. So maybe we look to other cities. I think Australia's very inspired by America, especially the grid system and the transport network we've got. So maybe we look to other cities, and they're the conversations we should be having. Like New York obviously has fantastic cycling infrastructure, a lot of people cycling. Yeah, it's all a bit ugly, there's a lot of Jersey curbs, etc. It all looks a bit manic, but that's just New York all over. It works, people are cycling. You look at Montreal, it's got another city with a great cycling culture. Montreal's backed up with the largest bike share scheme in North America. It's very easy to jump on a bike and cycle around Montreal. Bogota's often in the headlines as being a really good cycling city. It's really famous for its car-free Sundays, which is something Jakarta does as well, between 6 a.m. and 11 a.m. on a Sunday, where there's certain parts of the cities and cars aren't allowed in. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic, as you can see from the picture. Portland's great for its coffee, it's great for hacky sack, and it's also really good for bicycle infrastructure. It's got a really large cycling network and a really high share of commuters as well. Austin, Texas. Now, this is actually quite a new one on my radar, because the last time I went to Austin, I'd say there was two things you would never see. One would be a vegetarian option in any restaurant in the whole city, and the other one would be cycling infrastructure. So it's actually quite surprising to find that they've invested so much in prioritising secure bike lanes, more than most cities in America. This slide actually made me chuckle. You probably can't see it, but it says at the bottom, Sharrows not included, which I found amusing, and it's probably something a lot of my clients could probably take heed of. Cambridge, the cycling city in the UK, the first city in the UK to have a Dutch-style roundabout. There we go. I've been talking for 4 minutes, and I'm already talking about Dutch cycling infrastructure, despite saying I wouldn't. But Cambridge has got a really good modal shift. There's 29% of people, according to a Sustrans study, that cycle more than 5 days a week. There's a really good gender, age, ethnicity, disability. There's a really good split about who's cycling in Cambridge. And then London. So London's where I spent a lot of my career. And if you'll indulge me, I'd like to just take a little bit of a deeper dive into what's been going on in London over the last few years. So just to give you a little bit of a background. So some key dates. In May 2000, that's when the first modern mayor of London was elected. Now, this is actually really important because this is when we started generating the political will that is missing over here a lot of the time. And Ken Livingstone was the first mayor, and he wasn't doing a great deal for bikes, but what he did do, he was all about the buses. And as crazy as it sounds, and Fiona was mentioning it earlier about how cycling in the bus lane, when they started putting in bus lanes and taking private cars out of that space, people started cycling in the bus lanes. We'll all agree that's not very good infrastructure, but what it led was a demand to do better. We must do more. We've got the numbers now. What are we going to do next? So buses actually help cycling in London. June 2005, the first London design standards came out. They weren't amazing. This is back in the days when we'd celebrate a 1.2 metre painted bike lane, but still, we had some standards to work with. Tour de France, it started in London 2007, got everybody very excited, and then when Boris Johnson came into power, he released a document called Cycling Revolution London, and that spelled out how we were going to change London and make it really good for cycling. Cycle High was launched, which is a brilliant initiative, works really well, very easy to get around London on the Cycle High. I used to use it for site visits all the time, and then the first cycle superhighways also came out in 2010. Now I'm going to be honest, they were crap. A little bit of reallocation of road space, a lot of blue paint, but again, numbers, people came. This was a space where people cycling were allowed to feel welcome, and the cars couldn't really say, get out the road. So it drove the demand for more, but yes, they were poor, but we got a lot of people. Unfortunately, there started being quite a few accidents, left-turn hooks, that sort of thing, because there wasn't any protection. There was no separation in time and space at intersections. But that's okay, because we had the quiet ways off to the side. Now, what the quiet ways did, they just provided a nice parallel route in case you wanted a low, stressful ride instead. So this is one of the first quiet ways. They were pretty rubbish as well. Just basically lines and signs. Occasionally we get the odd modal filter. But obviously with Uber, Google Maps, etc., London's like anywhere, a lot of rat run in it. It was very difficult to implement and the quality was quite poor. So jump to 2016, and the key thing kind of here, we've got 90 kilometres of cycle routes at this point, but we've got 20 town centres connected with a mix of these fairly average cycle superhighways and quiet ways. So that number's important to me because what is London really? It's just a series of town centres, hamlets, villages. They've been connected by roads for years, for generations, and now we're just trying to connect it for everybody to get there however you want. So 2016, 5% of Londoners live within 400 metres of a cycle route. We go forward 4 years, and now we've got 15% live within 400 metres. We've got 267 kilometres. We've now got 47 town centres connected. Now, what also happened around this time is we actually ditched Cycle Superhighway, and I think everyone would probably agree the branding, the name is absolutely shocking, because what does it say? It says Lycra, it says fast, it says commute. It's talking to certain people in the room who are road cyclists. It's not really saying you're welcome to come here with your kids, take a little trip to school, that kind of thing. So they got rid of it, and they just called everything cycleways, and the quality started improving. We saw protected bike lanes, we saw hold the left turn, separation in time and space, and that's what really gave London the lift. So this was pre-pandemic. Post-pandemic, we're now up to 74 town centres we've been connected, 20% of Londoners are within 400 metres. Another 100 metres of upgraded cycle infrastructure has gone in, and there's been a 250% increase in cycling since we started in 2016. So it's great, but there's still a lot of work to do. So just have a look at this little video here. Now this is just some of the highlights of some of the successful bike schemes that we've seen. So there's a lot of people on bikes. They're all just dressed for the destination, not the journey, just going about the business, different types of bicycles. And everyone goes, wow, this is fantastic, look at all these numbers. But when I look at this, I do start to think about the future, and I know like in the Netherlands, they have capacity issues. In London, we have capacity issues as well. And these capacity issues aren't even factoring in the fact that we might be seeing a bunch of e-cargo bikes making last mile deliveries, e-scooters, a lot of e-bikes, faster things trying to occupy this space. And I look at this picture here, I'm like, is it going to be a barrier to cycling for people like this when we start mixing in all these faster modes into these protected bike lanes? And what does that mean? What do we do about that? So the obvious answer, well, we just make the bike lanes wider, but I think we've heard from a few people today, how difficult that is. I mean, just to get something like this in is, insanely difficult politically. And now we're saying, well, we're actually going to need a whole traffic lane, plus maybe some parking as well, if we're going to do it right. So I'm not saying we don't do protected bike lanes, we do, and I'll design them until the day I kind of leave the job. But there's going to be an issue, and we're going to have to deal with it. So what's the answer to dealing with that? Well, someone came over to Melbourne just last week and they came over from Barcelona and they said, well, maybe Melbourne could do a super block kind of scenario where all the traffic stays in certain streets and yeah, you can have a bit of access at a very low speed, like 10k an hour to some of the other streets for essential loading. And look, there's a lot of logistics to get through, but yeah, maybe that's an idea we could go through. I think every consultant in the world had a crack at it at some point. This is one from Bureau Happold that I saw, and they were suggesting 3 different lanes, 3 different micromobility lanes with a different speed for each. Is that going to work? Maybe. How do you enforce it? I'm not sure. What happens if a taxi wants to crawl down the curb at 5k an hour? Are they breaking the law? I don't know. Should it be separated? It's just the conversations we're going to have to be having, I think, going forward. But so far we're still talking commuting, we're still talking CBD, we're still talking fast cycling, maybe lycra. We're not really appealing to everybody. And the low-hanging fruit here, and Lucy touched on this morning, and so I've got some similar slides coming up, it's that multi-trip. It's getting to school, it's getting to the activity centre, it's going down to Bunnings, going to the florist, going for a naked bike ride. Whatever you want to do, you don't have to be on some big arterial road. So this is around your neighbourhood, and that's what we've been doing during the pandemic. We've been rediscovering our neighbourhood. So the low-hanging fruit and the easiest way to build a cycle network is just make all the streets really pleasant and easy for everybody. And yeah, we'll still need that arterial stuff, we'll still need the off-road, the big protected lanes. But we can do a hell of a lot of work in the meantime, while that's coming online. And the beauty of this kind of stuff is it doesn't really matter. You're not penned in. Anyone can come. E-bikes, cargo bikes, scooters, electric skateboards. They're using the whole street if you kind of take the approach I'm going to get into in a second, which is the low traffic neighbourhood approach. Now, it's really big in London. It's been going on for a few years now. The most famous one is probably the Mini Holland here we go, Dutch again, the Mini Holland in Waltham Forest. And so successful, they even wrote their own design guide. And what they basically did, they put all these measures in, which I'll go into, and they improved walking, cycling, life expectancy. The economy thrived, residential vehicles all came down, and static street use, which is huge, just dwelling on your street, having a conversation, reconnecting with your neighbours. Isn't that amazing? And how did they do it? 51 modal filters, 145 crossing treatments, 24 kilometres of new cycle tracks, 31 pocket parks, and 700 new trees. A very successful scheme. So after that went in, everyone started jumping on it and go, yeah, low traffic neighbourhood, let's go. Some of them were done well, some of them won't, some of them weren't, some were removed, a lot of them are still going strong today. And the beauty of what happens is that it was done as a trial. So using the planters and all that kind of stuff that Lucy showed before, and I'll show a couple more in a minute, maybe looking at some no entries, one-way streets, that kind of thing. It was done using temporary, cheap materials. And the best thing about it, it's a living, breathing, live consultation. So it's not saying, what do you think we're going to do it? It's actually live. So if anything really happens that's a problem, you go back and you move it. Some of the stuff was maybe moved for political reasons, but on the whole, it's been working really, really well. And it's opened up a massive amount of opportunities for people walking, cycling, using different micromobility devices. And this is the sort of thing, and I won't dwell on this too long, because I say you've seen these slides today already, similar. Just putting plant boxes in, left outs, that kind of thing, making a street, no entry, no exit. Really good stuff. Just this, you see this road, this is Dulwich Day where I used to live, and now you can just go there, you can sit down, have a coffee, have a chat with people, and people can just go about their business in any way they want in a very low stress environment. It's really good to see. You'll get opposition, you always will. You'll also get a lot of support. The opposition's usually louder than the support, so you've got to go and find that support usually before you start releasing these plans and make sure they're behind you, so there's that voice to help you. In Waltham Forest, they carried a coffin down the street shouting death to the high street. You go forward a few years' time, there was a survey done not so long ago, and 2% of people said they wanted it to all go back to how it was. House prices, up they go. And then there's always this opposition to say, well, you're just going to push the cars onto the other roads, you're going to pollution. It doesn't really happen. This 7 LTNs, low traffic neighbourhoods that were here, and on the peripheral roads, hardly any car traffic went up. In fact, some even came down on the peripheral roads as well. So, and this is all down to, traffic evaporation. Now, this is a great story out for Hammersmith. And Hammersmith Bridge in London closed a few years ago before the pandemic. There's only a few bridges to get over London in this area. So it closed because it had structural issues, and people could still walk and cycle over it, obviously. But so they did some counts, and 9,000 vehicles disappeared. It turned into a real Bermuda Triangle down there. So they did the count. You looked at all the adjacent bridges, and 25%, or was it 20 or 25% of traffic just vanished. And where did it go? People just changed the way they lived. They changed the way they travel. They changed the times they travel. It just disappeared. And I don't know any engineer in the world that I can go up to and say, I don't like that model, can you knock 9,000 vehicles out of it, please? But they should, because it's true. And we need to evolve the way we model stuff. And that's why I think trials are the best way to go. Sod modeling, let's trial everything. Actually, the modelers in Stantec are going to kill me when I get back to the office, because I just realised they might be watching this. So anyway, so London, 101 low traffic neighbourhoods. I just want to stop there actually and say, I really don't like the name low traffic neighbourhoods, and Lucy Saunders will talk to you really good about, in depth about framing, but it still says you're taking something away. What does a low traffic neighbourhood mean when I see that leaflet? That means you're taking away my ability to drive in my neighbourhood. How dare you, pitchforks. So there's another name for it, whether it's better streets, Megan, whether it's just talking about healthy streets, neighbourhood streets, open streets. I don't like the phrase low traffic neighbourhoods, but there's 101 of them anyway. There's 371 school streets in London at the moment, and that's where you cannot drive down that street during pick up and drop off, and outside every school it's a playground. 74 town centres connected, good diversity, 64% reduction in fatalities in London in 2020 against a national average of 6%. So we've been doing this sort of stuff a lot. I know we can't always do protected bike lanes, so I'll say to clients, well, let's look at it holistically. Let's do a low traffic neighbourhood. Let's kill the traffic, kill the speed, and let's develop something that way instead. And politically, it's a lot easier because, yeah, you can sit in your car for an extra 45 seconds and listen to your radio to get to your house, but you're not losing your parking. And then when you do it, the house prices go up, everybody's happy, and everyone's healthy, connecting with the neighbours. Brilliant. So it's easy, you can just you can put a planter down. Apologies for the poor render with the smallest child in the world on a bicycle there, but I didn't do that. But yeah, so you can just block the end of a street. You can do something like this roundabout in St Kilda. It's been there for years, and they've just taken out the arm of a roundabout. Once the bikes get through, it can be a two-way street again on the other side. It's just really simple stuff that you can go and trial. And they're doing it in the Netherlands, they're doing it in the UK, they're doing it a lot in Australia. Check out Liz Irvin's spin cycle that's coming up fairly soon. She'll give you all the precedents you need to take to the engineers and go, well, there's example 1, 2, 3, 4. How many have you got, Liz? About 20? 15 in Melbourne alone? Yeah, and that took you half an hour to find them? Well, probably exaggerating, but yeah, there you go. So I had to go at doing it for Randwick. I thought, well, I'm going there. Let's really set myself up for some criticism and have a look at an area that I've never been to before. So I looked at it and I spent about an hour or two on it. I was like, this could evolve, but essentially there's no reason. You've got this ring road, you've got the light rail. We can put a few little filters in, we can put some pocket parks in, get some raised wombats in. We can create a cycle corridor without removing any parking, or very little parking. Just don't let the traffic drive through the neighbourhood, or make it very difficult for them to do it. Keep them on the ring road. It's not going to take long for them to get to the properties. There's a lot of schools here. There's just no need. So trial it, get it in, let's make it happen. Look, don't interrogate this, I did it pretty quickly, but it's a really good conversation in the pub. But when I've had a few beers tonight, I will be defending this vigorously. Thank you. Okay, so look, I just want to finish off with a little video which I hope starts playing. And this is Telluride in Colorado, where I used to live. Lovely little town, Mount Ajax in the background. So you drive into the town of Telluride, and the first sign you come to is this sign, 15 mile an hour. Lena, you'll love this. And even gives a little digital thing there to tell you if you're going over 15. You're like, wow, that's pretty slow, but okay, I'll go with it. So you carry on, you're driving up towards a high street, and then the next sign you come to is this one. Please stop for pedestrians. There's no traffic lights, there's no roundabouts in Telluride. Everybody just gives way to people when they're walking around. You still get a fair bit of traffic. You still get quite a lot of parking. You can actually park in the middle of the road in Telluride. So there he is, he's 7 miles an hour, so I had to speed the video up a little bit. And then you get to the next sign, but when you hit the shops, look at this, 7 miles an hour from 15. Unbelievable. I know we're getting a bit silly here, but yeah, so that's what happens in the summer. It's 7 miles an hour to drive in Telluride. And you drive down the street, you've got parklets, you've got bike parking there, you've got this is the first place that Butch Cassidy robbed a bank, by the way. You've got more cycle parking on the left, more cycle parking on the right. You've got the outdoor dining there on the left as well. Carry on down the street. Oh, I don't know what that is, but yeah, I'd love to have a go at it. I just spotted it on the video. But you carry on going down, you go past the Fly Me to the Moon Saloon, where I spent way too many Friday nights when I was about 25 years old. And then as you get to the bottom of the street, in a second, you'll see the Galloping Goose appear. Now, the Galloping Goose is a free bus that just goes round and round the town. There's always 2 of them in circulation. Hop on, hop off. In the winter, you put your skis in, you put your snowboards in. It's brilliant. And then just before it turns left, there's an event on, so you can see there's a bit of a temporary modal filter there that's gone in. So yeah, and then it turns off towards the library. So fantastic. So if we are kind of looking to America, which we do in a lot of our kind of the way we design our transport system, maybe we could start with some conversations where people are saying, but we're not bloody Telluride, and that might be a good way to go. So thank you. Cheers.
Thanks, James. We've got some time for questions. James, there's a handheld mic there. Do you have some questions for James? Okay. All right, one at the front, and Megan, and then down the back.
So if we were to do this Randwick one with the traffic filters, within the current confines, what would be the sort of top 3 sort of quick engineering at a practical level that you would do to do that, and how might you model where we would put those traffic filters?
Yeah, look, I mean, we need to speak to people who know the area to start with, rather than just some bloke from Melbourne coming in and putting some pictures on there. But like, I think diagonal filtering is the easy way to go here, because I always get this thing about how a waste truck's going to turn around, etc. But you put a diagonal filter in, so it just becomes a left turn from both directions. There's always an escape, so there's not a problem. I think just get a couple of them in, and just put them in a couple of strategic places, working with the community, working with the council, etc. That's your start. But I had a look at it, and I reckon you put 2 or 3 of them in, you're done. Like you've definitely got an east-west corridor. Just the north-south might be a little trickier. And obviously there's things you have to figure out, like the school traffic, and there's a bus depot in the middle of it. But yeah, diagonal filtering should be simple. Go and do it. By the way, Catherine, I just wanted to say, I just saw you there. That phrase you came up before, open air traffic, is the most genius thing I've heard in years. So I'm going to steal that.
Up the back.
Hi there, Heath Ryan. I think we've met before.
Yes, definitely on Twitter we have.
Yeah. So could you just summarize for me, please, all of the overseas towns and cities you talked about? Could you contrast the motor vehicle insurance regime in those places compared to the motor vehicle insurance in Australia?
Well, actually, my wife had an accident yesterday, and I've been in and out of rooms trying to deal with it all day, and I only just found out that you don't legally have to have motor insurance here. So I'm a little bit annoyed. Where in the UK you have to have motor insurance, otherwise you're getting a fine, or if you've done it before, you'll get a bigger fine, points on your license, you'll go to jail. So that's a new one on me. I didn't even know that you didn't have to have insurance, and I think it's nuts.
Okay. Question over here. Thanks.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Tony Lehman, Randwick City Council.
Oh no. Oh no. Okay, thank you everybody. I'll be back next year.
I'd like to have a close look at your slides when you send them out. Thank you. Just with regard to convincing politicians, we're all the appropriate people. We all love this area. That's why we're here. How do I get the politicians that aren't in this same mindset to get into that mindset? Because I'll try and get the councillors to view the videos and stuff, but I know that there's some that won't look at it. Your advice, please.
Yeah, look, it's difficult, and it's easier in London, because what happens with the mayor there is basically he eventually said, I've got a great big pot of money to do like healthy street type projects, and if you want to do something, you come and bid for that pot of money, and if you don't, you're basically not getting any money. And when you do it, then you've got to deliver on it or on taking the money back. So we had that political will there. Here, look, I think the trial is the best approach to do. We actually had a really interesting conversation. Liz brought someone into the office a few weeks ago, and it was a doctor from New Zealand, and she did this program. What was it called, Liz? Wellbeing for. It was basically it was an advocacy where they had a bunch of doctors that go to consultations and speak to counsellors and stuff, and they're going in and talking about the benefits of doing this kind of thing, even on low level stuff like micro stuff and trial stuff. And what she was saying to us is, when you can go in and talk about climate change to a consultation event and people might be yay or nay. You go in as a doctor and you start talking about lives being saved, how much you're going to save the health service in a few years. It's pretty hard to stand up and challenge that. So I thought that was a really good approach. So that might be, I haven't done that myself, but it's something I'm going to, some of the stuff we've been going through in Melbourne recently, I need to start learning, meeting some doctors, because I'm going to need a bit of help. So that might be a way to go. But I think just focusing on the trial and being genuinely honest that if it doesn't work, you will move it, you will adjust, and you will listen to the community.
Would you please give James a big round of applause? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. James?